On this week's episode of The Rise, I sit down with Michael Gilroy, founding partner at Marathon, which he co-founded earlier this year alongside product legend Gokul Rajaram. Marathon is an investment firm partnering with founders obsessed with defining and winning their categories, with an early portfolio that includes Atlas, CloudWalk, Mercury, and Nero. A Berkeley grad, Michael began his career in investment banking before joining Canaan as a partner in 2014, leading investments in Content Square and Hugo, among others. In 2019, he joined the iconic Coatue team as a general partner, serving as head of Fintech and co-leading the growth practice, helping lead the firm's operations in San Francisco. Today, we talk about his rule of 200, what it takes and what it's been like to build a firm from scratch, the current state of Fintech, and advice for first-time fund managers. Grateful to Mike for the rare public appearance and hope you enjoy. I think the first thing I want to start with, and the reason I asked you to come on as an early guest, is I feel like 2025 has been like the year of the spinout. Mm-hmm. Top GPs at top funds, Sarah Guo spinning out of Greylock, starting Conviction. You have the team at Chemistry, Todd spinning out, starting alongside just like an incredible partnership. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have Michael Gilroy spinning out of Coatue.
Never heard of him.
Teaming up. Gokul to start this like new model of investment firm that's really exciting. What's in the water? What's in the air right now?
I'd answer it two ways. I think there's opportunity that you're asking and then maybe problem with what's existing. And I think the opportunity, to the extent anything good came out of ZERP, it's that founders were educated on the fact that this is fundamentally human capital business, right? And so the kind of solo GP model really proliferated during that time period. And so founders realized, hey, I don't need this big platform if I have this single GP who's an all-star for what I'm trying to build, right? And I think that effort by many of these folks that have done that, we were talking about a lot a second ago, really opened the door for many of us to come out and do it and to have founders be receptive to that, right? This is fundamentally a human capital business. We can talk about our edge until we're blue in the face, but we're investors and you're only as good as your sourcing and underwriting and supporting. The second piece, which is what are potentially some of the issues with the larger firms, many of the platforms in particular. We think about our business, there's three customers, right? You have LPs, you have founders, and you have employees, right? For many of these big platforms where a lot of these people are leaving, the fund sizes got huge, right? And you look at historical returns, as fund sizes go up, returns tend to go down. Okay, so now we have LPs who maybe are a little bit upset about what happened during ZERP. Some manage it better than others. And then we have employees, right? And you have employees who are at these firms and they said, okay, if that is the case, my carry's going down. So my golden handcuffs are not so golden anymore.
So that was a real reason though. Because that was in my head. I was like, this carry is like no longer, 50 million at work.
For some and not all, it kind of depends on where you were, but these are all, big numbers. But as you're looking at going to start something on your own, of course you have more of the carry pool and you're doing all of the work to get there, right? The second piece of the employee part is to the extent there was turnover before you, you're ending up with a lot of companies to support that maybe you didn't invest in. And founders are feeling this very acutely across many of these platforms, right? As you see this turnover, you see it as the human, but there's 10, 12 boards that this person had that the firm gets to keep, they should keep. And that's not a great founder experience either. And so that brings us to the founder experience, which is, hey, I'm now going to be the 350th company in this portfolio. I'm not going to get the time and attention from one of these firms that spun out today and hopefully is running a highly concentrated portfolio where, you're going to get 90, 95% of my time and effort because I have such a small board load and, it's a brand new firm, right? And so that's on these new managers to manage over time because that number is only going to go up across funds. But I would say both the opportunity and the problem set. And if you talk to any of these GPs, that's generally what they say.
I feel like it's everywhere. It's everywhere right now. I'm not naming any funds, but I put this post out a couple months ago. I think, the whole thesis behind Nucleus, I think next 3 to 5 years, the venture landscape is going to look incredibly different. I think it's going to be dominated by, on the breakout side, folks like Green Oaks and Thrive will continue to be bullish. But on the emerging front, folks like Marathon, folks like Conviction, folks like all the folks that I've mentioned, I think you guys are going to shape this next decade. I really do.
I appreciate you saying that. You're only as good as your last deal. And I know we're going to talk about me and Marathon today, but you've also made an incredible name for yourself. So I also wanted to say congratulations, because everybody is talking about you and the content you're putting out and just the effort, whether it's an investment firm or a recruitment firm. It's very hard to make that leap. And you've made a splash as well, my friend.
Day made. Let's go. All right, cool. So you and Gokul, you launched Marathon earlier it was Jan. It was like the start of the year, right?
Yep.
Mission, backing founders obsessed with defining and winning their categories, which is amazing. I want you to start with the mindset you both had going to founding Marathon. I'm curious, what's a problem set in venture, or I guess investing more broadly, that you're setting out to fix, and why?
Yeah. Let me start with my co-founder, Gokul. One of my co-founders, there are two others as well. I met Gokul when I was back at Canaan. I ran this fintech series called Fintech Central that hopefully we talk about. And that brought the fintech community together before there were 100 different fintech conferences. If you know Gokul, you know that he really does not like conferences. I've come to learn that as a friend, and certainly now as a partner, although I get him to come every once in a while. I tried to get him on the panel many times over, and he just said, no. But he agreed to the second best thing, which was to be my friend. And that ended up being a very valuable relationship. And of the 12 deals that I did at Coatue, Gokul and I co-invested on 8 of those 12.
Holy cow.
And it just became this really organic relationship where we were seeking friction in each other. He wasn't leading deals, so he wasn't competitive with me. We really went into the conversations and underwriting saying, hey, save me from myself. Here, Michael, I'm very good at the finance piece and the TAM piece and the trend piece. I know virtually nothing about product and operations like Gokul does, right? He's one of the best in the world. And so we got to come into these conversations not as a partner in the same firm, asking the other person to get out of their way because they want to deploy capital. It was, hey, how do we get to the best investment decisions and outcomes possible? And, that's the kind of work part of it. The second way I describe Gokul all the time is if there was a ratio in the world of ego to success, he would have the most favorable ratio of anybody I've ever met in my life.
Awesome.
Infinitely humble guy, and couldn't ask for a better co-founder out of the gate in Gokul. And so what did we see and why did we do this, right? I already mentioned that this is fundamentally a human capital business. But for us, the opportunity in the kind of venture ecosystem today, I think, is best embodied by Jerry Maguire. This is for those uncultured listeners or viewers out there, I'll give you a quick synopsis of it. Jerry Maguire, who's played by Tom Cruise, was a very famous sports agent working at one of these very large platforms. And in the middle of the night, one night, he had this epiphany and he said, hey, this business, we've all gotten lost in this business. Right now it's more clients and more money. This is really about less clients, more personal attention, and the human relationship behind this all. He put out this memo to the entire firm. Everybody's clapping for him in the morning, and his partners are behind the scenes saying, how long do you give him? We're going to fire him. This isn't how this business works. I liken that to a investment firm today that is just stacking AUM as fast as they possibly can. Right. And for us, the joy of the job for Gokul, Alex, Chase, and myself is really working with the founder. And that's always been true. It's the uniting theme underneath all 4 of us. It's very important. This is how I got my start at Canaan. I had a mentor and a guy named Dan Sapor in there. One of the most lovely human beings you'll ever meet in your life. Just cared deeply about the founder and the founder relationship. He was CEO of shopping.com. He ran debit and MasterCard.
Awesome.
And so kind of an operator true and true. And so
was he the Canaan founder?
No, he wasn't the Canaan founder. He joined probably 2012 or something,
cool.
A couple of years before he hired me there and gave me my shot in this business. And so for us, it's really coming away from that, conglomerate model, if you will.
Totally.
And we're running a strategy with highly concentrated portfolios. We're going to spend a lot of time on every single deal and trend that we work on. And for every one of our founders, there's 4 of us. We're on, text threads and emails and Zooms with all 4 of us at all times. You're not just getting one partner because all of your other partners are jammed on stuff. You get the entire Marathon team effort. And this is the way we want to wake up and work every day. And it's really why we're doing it.
I think I watched Jerry Maguire. This is not an exaggeration, at least, hundreds of times.
Correct.
When I was growing up.
I wanted to be a sports agent my entire life because of Jerry Maguire.
I literally, CAA was like top of the mountain, would drool over it. Like I was thinking mailroom job to start, like I'm ready to grind.
And then I saw Tom Cruise dancing on a couch and it's like venture capital is probably the second best to this.
100%. And for me, I look at people like you, like I hire investors for a living. I look at, that's that's my athlete, that's my athlete. The founder support is pretty incredible. I met Chase at your office in New York, and I think you had one of your I know you had one of your startups. There were like 15 people all grinding. It was like 8:15 in the morning. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool that you host startups in your office.
This business is just all about ecosystem, right? And my favorite thing about tech is, and the way we met, right? I think it was a Twitter conversation.
That's right.
People are always willing to pay it. Most people are always willing to pay it forward and help where and when they can, right? And there's a great community built around this business, and it's been a core part of how I learned this business going back to Canaan, kind of day one. And the office space in New York is a big part of that, right? We're looking at it and we're just kind of looking, we have 2 people there. Like, do we just get 2 offices and a conference room? And I think it was Gokul's idea. He said, why don't we just get like a massive open floor and we'll have founders come in and work out of the office. And so UI Agent, it's a seed deal that Chase led and recently announced. They have a full team there. I don't even know how many people they are now. I think they've gone from like 7 to 20 employees since we did it a couple months ago.
Incredible.
And then we have 2 other companies that are working. They're not even companies yet. They're just great founders who are working on ideas, and they're in our Slack and we're jamming on stuff. And so,
is that considered like an incubation play, or
if we don't even have economics for those founders? We're just like, hey, we like you. We've known you for a long time. Here's free office space. We'll jam on ideas with you and introduce you to people that we know. Now, hopefully we earn the right to win a deal if and when there is one, but it's just about ecosystem and being around great people.
Interesting. I think the partnership, the 8 co-led, I didn't know that with you and Gokul during I think that's incredible. Is that common across the rest of venture? Like for top GPs at iconic firms to have a couple of angels?
A lot of people do. I never really have. Some people you can see people, growth stage investors following consistently the same firm or GP. They either have the same investment taste or they just like working together and they bubble stuff up and have a good relationship in that way. I think we all have people that we're closer with in the ecosystem, but this was very, very unique and rare, and that it was so concentrated. I mean, there's basically an entire portfolio of companies together.
Location wise, I mentioned I went to the office in New York. We're in LA right now. You have the presence in Menlo Park in the Bay Area. Why did you think it was important to have footprints in different geos?
The first answer is it's people driven, right? And these are the 3 partners that, for me, we obviously dual opted into this partnership, but for me, they could have been in, Croatia, and I'd want to be in business with them. It really is human first. We have both coasts covered, and we have 6 extra hours in the day across the team. And, Chase and I worked together at our old firm, and it was exact same, cross-country relationship. Gokul, as I mentioned on the conferences, he's just always with companies. And so our headquarters is Slack and Zoom, exactly how it should be. We're with founders or with investors. And that's how we spend our time.
I have an idea of like the ideal marathon founder.
Yeah.
I'd love to pass it to you though.
Yeah.
Who's the ideal marathon founder?
Everybody looks and presents differently. If you were to go and look at, the 5 founders in our portfolio today, the one unifying theme for all of them is that they know their market and product set better than anyone in the world, right? And as an investor, and the way we invest, we go top down. We look for a good trend. We go meet everybody in that trend, and we try to pick the best company in that cohort. There's nothing worse than picking the number 2 or 3 company, in a great trend. And you get a sense for, missionary versus mercenary, another, Gokulism. It's a popular one, but we think about that a lot, and it comes through very quickly. historical founders. I remember coming out of a dinner one time with the founder, and his car had his company name on the license plate. And it's like, his identity is wrapped up into his business, and you just love to see that, right? Nothing great is ever built working 9 to 5, and it has to be a core part of your identity. And so just the why, right? You talk to a lot of founders that I have a first meeting with, and people like to jump into product and go to market, unit economics. And I just kind of like to get to that first moment of, hey, what was the moment where you're like, hey, I'm going to go beat my head against the wall for the next 10 years. It may or may not work. It's going to be a relentless and extremely tiring pursuit of this end goal. You have to be kind of crazy to make that leap. And I like to understand what that moment is. Was it because you want the TechCrunch headline, or is it because you want to go and solve this problem and it's very near and dear to you? The CloudWalk CEO, incredible story worth sharing. This is a business that I was fortunate to lead back in 2021, got to know him in 2019. It's the Square of Brazil.
Awesome.
Luis, the CEO, when I asked this question, he said, I was lucky enough to get a summer program at Stanford when I was in college. And when I was there, I decided there and then I was going to start a tech company, and I was going to take it public on a US stock exchange. And then he goes back home and says, what is the biggest issue and thing I'm most passionate about in my home community? Without getting too far in the weeds on payments, there's a infrastructure and set of norms that were set up to really take a lot of the profit or revenue from SMBs across Brazil.
Interesting.
And so he said, this is a tax on my economy and all of the people that I know and love. I'm going to bring the lowest cost payments to all of these SMBs across the entire country. Awesome. And I want our, economy to thrive in part because of what I'm doing. And so there are a lot of these stories like this that you draw on. You kind of know when you see it, and you can just feel it in the passion and why they're doing it.
So you love to bet crazy. I love, no, I'm just kidding. So if I'm a founder, the wire just hit.
Yep.
What are the first 30 days like?
Exactly like the prior 30 days. And a mantra that I've always lived by is win the deal before you get there, right? If I'm sending a term sheet and I'm not extremely confident that I'm going to win the deal, I'd rather not do it. I'd rather build the relationship ahead of the next round and spend more time. For us, we really like to spend a lot more time with founders going into the first check than I would say your average firm. We really like to build this relationship. It makes all the difference in the world. And it's really been the case with every single deal that we've done so far. And so when you get to that term sheet stage, I like to feel like if the founder says no, I'm hurt, and they know I'm hurt because of the effort, and
well, you are hurt, right?
Totally,
you actually care.
Totally, yeah. It's and it's for both of us getting to know one another, right? And this really is. I think we get lost in, I'm on all these boards and but going back to Jerry Maguire, like there's a human relationship component to this, and for us, and going back to why we did it, this is a huge part of it, right? The privilege of starting your own company or firm or whatever it is one, you're in a position to do that. It's a privilege that many people do not have. Totally. But the best part of the privilege for us and for me in particular is I get to decide every single person I spend my days with, right? LPs, founders, and partners, and we both get to figure out if we want to go spend the next 10 years together.
Mate, you're getting me all fired up over here.
Well, it's Convest.
Yeah. I always want to talk to you about that. So, started your career in IB.
Yep.
Very untraditional. Canaan was the first VC.
Yep.
Who brought you into Canaan? I know you mentioned this briefly. Can you just walk me through that process? Was a search firm involved? Did you break through yourself? And I think you joined as an associate. You left as a partner, so you did pretty well.
Yeah. I'd have to go back. I actually don't recall on the search firm. What I would say is I was a banker for 5 years. I always joke. I always say it was 5 years too many, but I don't mean that. I think banking is a great way to get into this business and just any business at all. It's such a great foundation.
Hustle.
But what I would say is I was recruiting in earnest for about 2 years before I got an opportunity to go to Canaan.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, so you knew you wanted to break into venture?
I absolutely did. I was the investment banking analyst turned associate, which meant I didn't get a buy side job right away. Mm-hmm. I was sending decks and, landscapes and analyses to GPs, just cold emails, getting in front of folks. And it was brutal. Like I went through 3 or 4 different processes where I was like, last person in the process, and just for whatever reason didn't work out. And, when I met Dan at Canaan, he, I'd kind of talked about it earlier, but he, the raw intellect, jumps out at you right away. And then he's just a good person. And, we had a lot of fun, maybe sometimes too much fun working together, but he really kept it light. And in a job that's, you're managing money, it's a stressful job kind of by definition. And, the rest of the partnership there, it's a firm that was founded in 87. So they're kind of like the OG venture cohort. I learned about reserves and pacing and really how to run and manage a venture fund and the founder relationship while I was there. And so that's kind of how I got my start.
I want to touch on some more of the deals quickly from Canaan, but you did mention something. So 2 years, you were grinding for 2 years to break into venture. And I'm calling this out because there's a lot of people trying to break in right now that are frustrated. And I think it'll be really good for them to know that someone like you, the co-founder of Marathon, the former GP at Coatue, the partner at Canaan, 2 years to break in. So when you got the itch and you're like, okay, absolutely, I want to do venture capital.
Yep.
Can you just walk me through, like, did you just cold reach out to all of these GPs where you said you were sending maps? Like what advice do you have to give to people who are going through that right now?
It's just hustle. I think the same way we think about our business is you can't see a pitch that you don't hit, or you can't hit a pitch that you don't see. And so, being out there, and I do my best to respond to all these emails because I was there. I know it's terrible, and you get rejection after rejection. There's only so many seats in this business. There's a lot more seats today, but a lot more people want to do it. But it was any and everything, just networking, after work, sending anything I could. I was tweeting at people, DMs, all of the above.
I do a lot of tweeting at people.
You're a very good tweeter.
Yeah. I'm on there. The Canaan investment, I do want to move to Coatue quickly, but so Content Square, Hugo, Scale Factor, like those are great investments.
Yep.
And were you living in New York at the time?
Yeah, I was in New York 2014 to 18, 19.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How was the New York tech scene 2014 to 18?
It's funny. We had an office in Union Square, and then we moved a little bit south on Broadway, right across from that famous bookstore. I'm blanking on the name. But I remember there was a conversation about, how much should we be investing in the New York ecosystem? And we had 2 GPs, a partner, and then I was a principal, and then we had another associate. And so, we had a decent number of folks there in a nice office space. And I remember, going in and kind of pitching the New York tech ecosystem and why it's important. And now I think about that, and you had to at that time. It wasn't super obvious, right? There were certain sectors, fintech in particular at that time, and still were big, and that was good for us because we had a big fintech brand, but it was not obvious. Today, you cannot not be in New York City. You just have to be there. And, the startup founder is really everywhere now. So it's not really something we think about.
Totally.
I think at least half of our portfolio is in New York. Yeah. 3 of the 5 actually. Yeah.
I've been to New York each of the last 3 months. I have 2 GP searches in New York running right now. I think that Soho is, just as dense as Flatiron, which is kind of cool to have 2 little pockets like that. And, I know we've said this like 10 times over the years about New York, saying that, I think it's definitely there, right? Definitely there now.
Yeah.
So that's super exciting. Super exciting. I don't want to bounce around too much, but since we're talking about New York, you led the Berkeley Alumni Network. You founded the New York alumni for Berkeley, right?
Yeah.
You led that and you built that up. Can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So first of all, I Berkeley just will always hold a near and dear place in my heart for me because I grew up in a small town called Newark, California. Public school there. It's the same school my mom went to, all my family. And, just a wonderful place to grow up and learn life. And getting to Berkeley I recognized it very quickly after I got there. There were two big things that I remember thinking. One, this is my shot. Like, don't mess it up. Like, this is a big break for you. Go and do it.
Meaning like go do really well in school.
Do really well in school, because, getting into Berkeley was a really big deal for me at that time. I didn't really expect, to go to a good school, quite frankly.
Yep.
And the second thought was, oh my God, I'm not prepared for this. This is really hard. It was really hard. I was just completely unequipped for certainly the education component, but also the social component. Is just a different atmosphere for me. And Berkeley is, in retrospect, it's a perfect place for me. There's like 30,000 people on campus. There's nobody there to help you and like walk you to class or guide you through things. And if you don't log into the portal fast enough, you can't get the classes that you need. Like it is a sink or swim type of place. And that first year I was sinking. And so I obviously ended well, and that school really changed my life. And so when I got to New York in 2014, I had like two friends, and I said, I looked on Facebook. I had Facebook at the time, and I just looked for like a Berkeley meetup, and I went all the way to Brooklyn. I lived in Nolita at the time. And there were like 6 people that showed up at this like UC Berkeley meetup. Again, 30,000 people on the campus at any given time. I was like, there must be thousands of people here. Like,
totally.
what's going on? And like 2 of the 6 didn't really speak English, and like the other 2 were 20 years older than me, and it was like it was just weird, frankly. And so I happened to meet another Berkeley alum. His name's Justin Sharp, one of my best friends in the world. We're each other's daughter's godfather, and so this led to a deep friendship. And we just kind of said, hey, like, we're youngish and we're in New York. Why don't we try to build something? And so along with another one of my dear friends, Michaela Lalonde, we built this Berkeley board. And tech was at the center of it, just because that's what I did and that's what Justin did. And Michaela does commercial real estate for technology companies.
Interesting.
And so we started there and just slowly built up a list. And it got in touch with the university. They gave us whatever they had, which wasn't a lot.
Yep.
And then we just started hosting events. And so we had athletes coming in, from the football team. We had tech entrepreneurs and investors, and really just ended up building a massive database of folks there. Ended up raising a lot of money, and it was just a very rewarding experience. Building these deep friendships and kind of community building overall for the school.
I love it. Selfishly, I'm going to ask you here. So we're investing in curating this next gen and like rising star community that's going to be made up of, call it probably like 50-60% sitting investors, up and coming rising star types, right? Earlier career, just getting started, maybe a little bit of DBI. Other half will be like, honestly, the best engineers on the planet. Right? Yeah. Like that's the type of community we're trying to curate. Any tips as we start thinking about like building up this in New York?
Just only give Marathon access to the engineer part. Look, I think, again, just going back to the natural lean of people in our industry, if you put something out there and you're thoughtful about it, people are going to show up, and it just builds, right? The first Fintech Central that I did there, it was at some law firm, like in a back corner, and there were like 20, 30 people there. And I just kept doing it. And next it was at NASDAQ in Times Square. And like they had me ring the bell. And I just remember this, I was probably a principal at Canaan at the time. And I'm like on the screen ringing this. I'm like, I don't know how I got here, but this is great. All my friends back home were texting me. And then we did it at Lending Club in San Francisco. And it became this bi-coastal thing. And it just brick by brick, right? Just like anything else. And so you have a phenomenal network, and we're super happy to help. And I love it.
5 years at Canaan.
Yep.
5 years at Canaan. Coatue knocked on your door.
Yeah.
Got you as a general partner. Joined Coatue as a GP, which is a really big deal.
Yeah.
Just from the recruiter perspective, to get hired as a GP at an iconic firm like a Coatue and the folks that sit alongside that tier.
Yep.
Exceptionally hard. Is how I can put it. How did that happen? Why did you join? Talk to me about that.
So we shared 2 boards together.
Who's we?
By the way, neither one of them worked. Who
was we?
Me and Coatue, Thomas LaFawn in particular. And so we had 2 boards together. And, I had since I had the Investopedia paper trading account in college, I just always had this natural interest in the public markets. And we were coming back from one of the board meetings and Coupa came up and I kind of pitched him Coupa and I was like, reciting the, income statement and, some of these other things. And, he was utterly shocked that there was a early stage venture investor from, Canaan that knew all this about Coupa. And I was like, these things are just dumb luck, right? I had happened to go visit Rob, the CEO of Coupa, like a week before. And there was a guy named Ravi who was leading Coupa Pay. And I had just happened to be talking to Ravi about Coupa Pay. And that was like the big bull case on the stock. And so I remember just thinking like, how lucky am I? Like, he's covering this name and I happen to know a little bit about it. And now he's super happy with it, right? And so that's kind of how it started. And, they took a shot on me and one of the biggest breaks of my life and career, undoubtedly. I think the mentorship and learning the business of money management and process. I think investment process is something that I really take from my time there. It's a very process oriented place. And now today, when I talk to the team, it's, hey, we fall in love with the process. We feel good about the process. We'll live with whatever those results are, but we have to feel good about the process and lean on that.
Brought in as a GP and then tapped to swing over and head Fintech, co-lead of the growth practice at, again, a firm like Coatue is just a ridiculously big role. What were you doing right over there?
I think, first of all, it's an incredibly flat organization. And to their credit, they will give you as much leash as you're capable of running with and believe in you, right? And so if you show ambition, desire and willingness to do that, they will give that to you. And so, a lot of the credit goes to them for the opportunities that I got there, right? And again, your career ends up working out in really funny ways. I happened to be in Fintech because a guy named Dan Saporin hired me. I knew nothing about Fintech when I got to Canaan and I, leaned into this thing because Dan wanted me to. And I'm like, oh, it's a big market. I may as well run with this. Like complete dumb luck, right?
Totally.
Fintech ended up being one of the biggest, places to deploy capital during my time there. And I happen to know every Fintech company in the world, including the public companies. And so I was able to jump in and help cover some of those names over time. And, it just kind of happened organically. And, I think there's just a moment in time for opportunities like this. And it was a great moment.
Who's your favorite public Fintech company?
Oh, Adyen. And Adyen is, it's not even my favorite public fintech company. I think Adyen is one of the best tech companies in the world, period.
Interesting. I love it.
It just is I'll give you a couple of tidbits on Adyen. One, to this day, the board still interviews, at least one person on the board interviews every employee that comes in. It could be an admin, it could be a junior engineer. They care deeply about the culture.
Holy cow.
The second thing is all of the technology inside of Adyen is homegrown.
Interesting.
They do not buy. They will not do M&A. They are printing money at breakneck pace and they will not do M&A. They're going to continue to reinvest it in the business. And, you look at a business like that, 40% plus EBITDA margins. It's just a wonderful, wonderful company.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. When did you invest in them?
I didn't invest in Adyen as a private company, but they're a public business that, I'm
glad I hadn't heard of them, honestly. I'm glad you said that.
It's the Stripe of Europe, and now they're both coming into their own lane. So the way to think about Adyen is they're Stripe for enterprise and Europe initially, and Stripe is SMB US. Now they're both going in the opposite direction on both of those vectors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You sat on some pretty awesome boards at Coatue. I'm curious, how did those board experiences shape how you're interacting with and supporting founders today?
I always say, well, let me take a step back. Again, going back to the human component of this, I've been in, different types of therapy and coaching for the last decade of my life. It is by far the best tool for me. And I think many other people, this is a passion of mine and something that I'm spending a lot of time in to build something in, which is a side note.
Yep.
As a result of that, I love coming in and just understanding the founder. And you ask my three partners, they probably know more about me than they do some of their best friends. Complete open book. And I think it's a nice way to understand the professional behind the human. And then I can understand tendencies and, somebody's off one day or they react a certain way. It just makes life so much easier in that way. And so I always describe myself as a board member as a chameleon because I can't come in and present to CEO A just like I do with CEO B, because they have their egos running in a certain way. They have certain scar tissue. They're motivated in different ways. I told you about, Luis, and kind of what motivates him. There's a CEO that I work with, and he's like, I just want to own a G5 one day, and I want it to be brand new. And I'm like, great, like, let's go. Let's get you a G5, and I'm going to talk about a G5 and money every time we talk. I don't care what it is, but I want to understand it and also show up, right? And there's carrot and stick in certain moments, and there's some CEOs you can never use a stick with, right? And and vice versa. It's a two-way street, so we both have to show up for each other.
I would like 2 G5s. What is on the and we'll talk about some more of the deals at Coatue. I'm a very happy Mercury customer. So selfishly, I wanted to just like pull that out. Yeah. Because I love their product so much. How'd you meet Mercury? How'd that kind of come to light? They're ripping right now, I feel like.
Yeah. So this was one where I think the investment process really worked super well. This is a massive market, right? And the 3 kind of key pillars that we talk about at Marathon: trend, TAM, and business model, right? And we don't have team in there on purpose because the default is we only want to work with great people. So saying team, it just feels like redundant with what we do in early stage. And so that's kind of our broader framework for investing. With Mercury, you look at that space, the trend to digital bank accounts is an obvious one. Like, you don't have to be super smart to know that. Yep. Okay, how big is the market for merchant banking? It's quite large. Totally. Right? Business model, if you get away from pure lending off of the balance sheet, which is what a lot of these banks do, and you lean into things like software and corporate cards and debit cards and some of the interchange revenue, then it becomes really powerful, right? And so early on, I'm like, okay, all of these things are true. Now let's go landscape it. You do a landscaping exercise for digital banks for businesses, back in 2019. It's a really long list, right? And so you're like, man, I need exposure here. I cannot be in somebody who's not going to win. I'm going to have to track all these companies, right? And so you do that. And in that case, it was 2 or 3 years of tracking it and just seeing what's going on, getting to know the founder. And there was a moment in time where I was talking to a mod who I now view as probably the best, certainly product person I've ever worked with, but also just leader. He's got this piece to him that comes with being a second-time founder and some scar tissue that has been built up over time. Yeah. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful human and operator. And the unit economics on that thing were just humming, and they still are. And Gokul happened to be the first check into that business and was a big part of helping me understand the power of a mod and the power of the rest of that team. And they, I'll never forget, there was a board meeting, and this is probably 22 or something. And we're going through the product roadmap, and he's like, and for the next product, we're going to launch a corporate card. And I didn't lead the investment. My old partner, Bennett Siegel at A-Star did. But I was on the board of Ramp after he left. And I was like, wait, so you're going to like build Ramp and Brex? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, do you know how much money they've raised? And they have like full teams going after this. He's like, no, it's not that complicated. We're just, brick by brick, we're going to go out and pick the features that matter the most. And I'm like, okay. And it's a great board is Ram Pellet, Andreessen, and Sarah at CRV. And, just a great experience and team all the way around. But your insights and perspective as a customer are felt inside of that business and at the board level for sure.
I'm going to add one more. So I had a new hire, Mason, join a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing this New York trip, and I was able to, in my app on my phone, get a virtual card printed for him that he could use for the flights and the hotels and all that kind of stuff. And that was so cool. It was really, really awesome.
And you say that it's a great feature. I hear that and I'm like, man, that's a great gross profit stream. It's high multiple gross profit. It's high NDR gross profit. It's very sticky. It's a great product.
It's a great product. Yeah. And you mentioned he was a killer operator, a great leader. I think he's got one of the best angel track records of any sitting founder out there right now. Yeah. What is this theme of more and more founders? You see like Dylan Fields track, you see Anton at Lovables track, you see Ahmad at Mercury. I feel like when I was coming up 10 years ago, there weren't as many folks doing angel investing and building a business at the same time. Did I just not know about them, or is it a theme? Or
So there's two things. You reminded me of a conversation I had. There's a good friend of mine who's an athlete, and I asked him one day, we were golfing, and I'm like, you just seem to do everything. He's like a Hall of Fame athlete. He, great investor, phenomenal human being, loves art, loves chess, all these things. And I was just like, how do you stay fresh? Like, your body got beat up for, 10, 15 years and you do all of these things. And he actually just said, MG, the key to staying fresh is doing a lot of things with all of your passion. And if you do one thing with all of your passion for too long, you're just going to burn out. It doesn't matter how much you love it. And that has resonated with me a lot and how I live my life. And it's helped a lot. And so I look at that with Ahmad, and I think a lot of investors are like, oh my God, they're spending time away from the business and da-da-da. It's like, no, two things. One, if they love investing, great. Like, it's great for the ecosystem. It's great for them. Also, maybe they make some money on it. Like, fantastic. That's good for everyone involved. And then they also know these products really well, right? And that's their job, to be using the next gen infrastructure, kind of whatever it is. And further to this point of leaning into the ecosystem, many times, you get in a situation like that, writing an angel check, you don't even necessarily think it's going to be a home run, but you want to support this person, and that's valuable, right? And I know that's how Ahmad leads and invests too.
I'm really impressed, and now I know you let it leak. Your friends call you MG, so I'm working on the MG status here. So the rule of 200. And when I was I'm trying to do like a little bit of research, not a little bit, I try to do my homework before these, right? And when you're at Coatue, I think it was, maybe if it was before, correct me. You this rule of 200 concept, you started publishing a little bit on. I thought it was fascinating. Can you just walk me through what that is? Yeah,
so it was born out of a place where, when you look at financial services in the public markets, we have the most variance of multiple, earnings multiple or gross profit multiple, than any other sector in business, right? So this could be oil and gas, this could be healthcare, consumer, so on and so forth. And by nearly 2x, right? So what does that tell you as an investor? That tells you that, man, there's a lot of business models in financial services, and there's some great companies, and then there's some like really bad companies that are trading at the low end of this. So you got to be careful, right? And so I think being a tourist in fintech is extremely dangerous, and these cycles repeat themselves, over and over and over again. But the rule of 200. So what is it? So it's the NDR, net dollar retention percentage. Yep. What does NDR say? NDR says, on month one, I sign you up as a customer, you pay me $1. And, by year two, you're paying me $2. That's, 200% NDR, right? You've doubled what you started with. And so for payments companies, this tends to be like 115 to 130 or 40 in bull markets. I remember dLocal got up to, I'll never forget this number, 219% NDR as a public company, that means the company is growing 119% without adding a single customer.
That's incredible.
It's just incredible, right? And so that is it's a cheat code and method for me to say, hey, can this business look and feel like all of the best components of a old school SaaS business with annual recurring contracts and things to upsell, because those businesses in general are, again, 115 to 150 when you're best in class. You can do that in fintech if you bundle and you build more products, and hopefully you're doing that with products that are really high NDR. And so I'll spend more time on that in a second, but going back to the formula, it's the NDR percent. We just unpacked that a little bit. The revenue growth rate percent, the gross profit percent, and the EBIT percent.
Interesting.
Right. And the only one to call out, I think the other two are obvious. The other one to call it is gross profit. The gross profit percent, as you digest it, you can understand the type of business that it is. And in fintech, it's not even necessarily a bad thing if you're 20, 30% gross profit. And many are, right? Because there's a gross revenue number that is kind of meaningless, especially if you're in payments, because, the way the interchange and infrastructure, costs work. If you're lending, that gross profit can be really high, but that NDR is going to be really low, right? I make you a loan, a mortgage right now. Your revenue to me is just going to go down and to the right forever, right? I'm not selling you more products and these types of things. And so that will also give you some insight into that. And so it was a play on Rule of 40, because Rule of 40 just does not work in our business at all. And this will help you kind of really get to the core of how good of a business this actually is. And it's really a tool for growth stage and later stage folks, but it's been really fun.
I think it's really cool when people love their craft and you hear about stuff like this. I'm serious, right? Yeah. You have your own mental model, like you got it out into the ether. I think that's really amazing. the boardroom moment. So you were doing a lot of business. Your portfolio companies were scaling globally when you were at Coatue.
Yeah.
So you LATAM, you mentioned. I know you've been planning EMEA a little bit as well. At least when you're at Coatue. I don't know how it looks currently. What has changed, or how do you think about if you have a portfolio company wanting to break into LATAM or wanting to break into EMEA, or maybe a company out there? How do you think about the global tech community right now?
So there's fintech, and then there's the rest of tech. And I would say the rest of tech, it's a lot easier. And that's because there aren't regulation, right? And so, Content Square, it's one of my first big investments at Canaan. It was I think it was a $20 million Series B check. And Jonathan, the CEO there, is just a legendary operator. But, for that business, coming to the US from Europe was just hiring a sales team and a support team in the US, right? And he hired a bunch of people in New York, and, you go and start selling the product in the US. That's it, right? You asked about boardroom moment. So, in a CloudWalk board meeting, and this company, by all intents and purposes, is one of the best performing companies I've ever been involved with. This is probably, 22, 23. And he said, okay, we're going to enter the US. And I'm like, oh God, where everything's going great. Please no. The list of bodies in fintech for folks that spent a lot of money and cross-border, it is a very long list. Why is that, right? You have in Brazil, he's worked with the central bank. He knows all of the regulators across government. He has a relationship there. He's known and trusted. You have to go and recreate all of that in the US with its own distinct set of rules, laws, regulations, and it's expensive and hard. And Luis and I have a type of relationship where we'll go at each other. We both know it's, with the best results in mind and with a, good spirit behind it. But he was really mad at me. And I was just like, this is this huge mistake. And for anybody who's worked with me, they know I'm not shy to share my point of view. Yep. I just can't help myself. And, he came back like a month later, literally didn't talk for like a month. He was really mad at me. And came back and he said, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to set a list of parameters. So you're going to feel good about it as an investor who's led back-to-back rounds and is on the board and is my biggest supporter. And I want to set these up so that you feel good with it. And I said, great. Okay. I want you to do three other things. Go talk to Ryan McInerney, who's the CEO of Visa, Jackie Reeses, who ran Square Capital and is now the CEO of Lead Bank, and Gokul. And I want you to tell them your idea, and then I will talk to them and let's see what they say. And 3 of the 3 came back. This is the biggest idea I've ever heard.
Awesome.
He should run at it immediately. And then Luis comes back. I'm like, what the hell do I know? You're right. Great idea. Let's go do it. He's now live in the US and it's going extremely well. And it takes a really special operator in those moments because it's hard. And he bit the bullet. He was flying up to San Francisco like every month. It's not a short flight from Sao Paulo.
Brutal.
And he just cares. He lives, breathes, eats, sleep, CloudWalk, and it's a beautiful thing. But it's hard. Some of the best operators in the world have failed with this.
Well, I'm rooting them on, 100%. I did take a look through your track to current. What through line do you think best defines your investing style? I have one bullet down, but I want to hear you.
Anytime I try to be smarter than I am, which is not super smart, that doesn't work. If I feel myself getting too creative, it ends poorly. And so I just have learned that I want to invest in simple things that I can understand really easily. And not to downplay what they've done, and I can do this because they're such great companies, but what is Mercury? Okay, Mercury is a merchant bank with a functioning website and app. Mm-hmm. Like there isn't, I'm recreating this lending product or some crazy AI story that's changing the way we live. This is, this is just better than, what's out there today. When we launched Marathon, we talked to JP Morgan, we're like, hey, we need a bank account. They're like, great, we'll have it live in 3 months. It's like, that doesn't work for us. We need to start taking money. Literally 3 months.
That's crazy. Is that like normal?
It's pretty normal. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. They'll tell you 2 to 3 months, and there's just KYB processes. They don't really care to have another bank account, right? If they needed to, I'm sure they'd be faster. Yep. And then you look at Melio, which Zero just bought. It's Bill.com 2.0. It's like, hey, B2B payments. Is this a big TAM? Yeah. businesses pay each other a lot? Is the trend that business people want to pay online and not with checks? Yeah. Pretty straightforward, right? And CloudWalk, Square of Brazil, like business model that worked here, like, rinse and repeat. And so that is really the trend line, for me. And it's also helped me avoid, I think, a lot of pain in this business, because when the crypto boom was happening during ZERP, I would just come out of these meetings and I'm like, I just don't get it. I just didn't understand it. And I'm, by the way, there's absolutely technical components around, crypto that I'm truly just not smart enough to understand. And so maybe I just save myself from myself.
Yep.
But I would come out of these things and I just don't feel like we need a new technology for many of these applications. Now, is it true that stablecoins are a massive trend? Visa just announced this week that their stablecoin volumes up 4x on massive numbers year over year. And it underpins two of our companies that are in the portfolio today. And so, I'm super happy to be late to a trend if I just don't understand it. And, I'd save myself a lot of time that way.
That's really funny that the bullet that I had down was that looks like you avoided like the, how do you bucket the two sides, right? It looks like you avoided you avoided both sides for a little bit, but definitely the gambling, rich gaming kind of piece, sloppy.
Yeah. And like the $3 million JPEGs and stuff like that.
Yeah. Right.
Right. I just, and the database stuff, I remember people pitching it as a database and like the databases seem to be working like decently well today. I just don't know that we need it. But yeah, again, dumb luck. I just didn't get in, so I'm going to lean out.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So there's 4 unique partners at Marathon, like founding team. I have you, Fintech growth, Gokul product engineering, like the operating DNA, Alex, like very deep enterprise software, like looks like on the diligence fronts, he's an absolute animal. Chase a grinder. Chase freaking hustles his behind off. You can absolutely tell. Looks like his track, we didn't talk much about it, but looks more like venture growth intersection. Yeah. How did that all come together? Did I get that right?
Mostly, and I'm going to correct a few things, but they're natural responses. The only thing I wrote down that I want to read. So Nate Anderson, the founder of Hindenburg Research, is a famous hedge fund. He closed shop this year and wrote a long letter to his LPs and founders and friends. And there was a section where he talked about his team. And as I was reading it, it's like, this is exactly how I've thought about us at Marathon, but he just said it much better. And so I want to read it.
Amazing.
And he's talking about his team. They're all smart, focused, and fun to work with, little to no ego. When you meet them, they're all very nice and polite. But when it comes to this field, they are ruthless assassins capable of world-class work. And so I think that that's obviously the team that he assembled. It's exactly how I want the ecosystem to perceive us and how we show up with our companies and with our LPs and with really everybody out there. And so when you look at the 4 of us on paper and even just here, if we're all in the room, like we're all completely different human beings, truly. Like there's no consistency of style. It's not like 4 finance people. It's not 4 operators. Even the 3 of us, Alex, Chase, and myself, with pure finance backgrounds, we're all very different and we show up differently, right? The unifying goal for us, and we talked about it earlier, you either want to be in the Hall of Fame of AUM or Hall of Fame of returns.
Yep.
And you can just be really open with each other up front. So I'm like, guys, we're never going to run a massive AUM firm. We're going to run a concentrated portfolio where we do deep work and hopefully the results are there. But if not, we're going to feel good about the process, right? And that's a tough thing for an investor many times living off fees to really opt into. Yep. And we're very, very open about that. And we're also unified on supporting our founders, right? And this is a thing that many GPs just don't like to do. We actually really like to support our founders. We think it's a great part of the flywheel and we just enjoy doing it. But many GPs don't, and that's fine, right? It's part of the business model. But kind of going down the line, I talked about Gokul a lot, but I've worked with a lot of operators over the course of my career. Founders flock to him in a way that I've never seen in any business or social setting ever. And that's because of this ego to success ratio that he has. And he's just a wealth of knowledge. His calendar, Saturday and Sunday looks like me and your like Monday, Tuesday.
No kidding.
He just loves this stuff, always with founders. It's not even grinding to him. He just loves it. He loves being with founders, loves that first meeting and learning. And he shows up with endless amounts of optimism and encouragement.
Amazing.
In a way that, quite frankly, I could not time and time again all week long.
Totally.
Right? And then we look at Chase, and I've seen Chase do just so many phenomenal things. I had this thing when I first hired him where I wanted to test like depth of network, right? Because, you get so many boards and you have so many things internally, like your sourcing ability just kind of goes down.
Yep.
And so I walked into the first interview and I'm like, sorry. And I like pretend to be my phone. I'm like, I'm trying to track down numbers for this company. I like haven't been able to get them anywhere. And it was like a relatively hard company to get. And literally like an hour after the interview, he sent me a text and like had all of the numbers everywhere. And so now I'll like mess with him when I don't even need them. And he just has the ability to get stuff everywhere. He's an expert networker, also happens to be incredibly smart and works his tail off. And then Alex, I think Alex is most like me. We both love the research component of this job. We love the process component of this job. When we met through two of my very close personal friends that I had also worked with, who were both extremely high IQ and analytical, but also just good humans that you want to be around and have dinner with. And we went and we just talked about investment process and like the pros and cons of voting in an IC versus not, what the deck should look like when you're presenting it, what the model should look like, what should we have in there, what should we not have in there. Awesome. And him and I can just jam on that stuff forever. And we really love that aspect of the job. And so, the four of us coming together, it's a wonderful, wonderful fit. We debate hard and we go at each other extremely hard. It's the only way to get to good outcomes in this business. We have a rule internally, which I think you absolutely need if you're going to debate hard like we do, which is you have to, if you are ever wrong, you have to say it out loud or write it down. If it's in Slack or email, or if it's live, if you are wrong, you build a lot of credibility that way with people around you. And it's true.
I love that. I've never heard of that.
Just say it out loud.
Yeah.
And there's been cases, Chase is going to laugh, the whole team's going to laugh watching this. There's been cases where like Chase is wrong. And I'm like, dude, just say you're wrong. You're wrong. I'll wait. And it's true for all of us, right? Yep. But Chase and I are, have a very long-standing relationship, and it's a lot of fun in that way. But it's important, and stuff like that breaks down, resentment builds, and all of these things and partnerships. This is a really high stress, tough, high speed environment, and these kind of guiding principles matter a lot.
100%. It's a really intense role. I think, we work with the same people, right? Like, different roles, but founders, GP, just very intense role. First, my first week or two at True Search when I came in, one of my mentors over there told me like the hardest part about this job is managing the stress.
Yeah,
and
totally.
At the time, it didn't really resonate. Now it's, I tell it to everyone. It's like, good Lord. Yeah. I did want to talk about the white paper, the Fintech in Pursuit of Pride. I just thought like that was freaking awesome. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think I love Fintech, and I truly love this ecosystem and job. And it wasn't something that was necessarily planned. It just was kind of like, man, we have this like body of work and knowledge that would be a great marketing moment for the firm and hopefully good for the ecosystem, right? Totally. Rule of 200 was in there. I must have fielded 30 CFO calls like the week after where they just wanted to learn about it. They wanted to see the data set and all these things. Amazing. And, that's really cool and it's rewarding. And it is a lot of work. But, that body of work lives out there forever. And, beyond the names that were on the paper, there's a lot of great resources and thoughts and input from, my old partners there. So all of these things are a team effort always. And, it was a really rewarding one. And hopefully we'll have some time to do one at Marathon in the near future as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Speaking of Marathon, where do you want Marathon to be positioned 10 years from now?
I want two things. One, for the ecosystem to describe us exactly how Nate described his team. Awesome. Number one thing. And number two, and this is really it. And if you're asking about vision, I'll answer that too. But number two is that you ask me, how closely have you adhered to the investment process at Marathon?
Yeah.
And I just want to say 10 out of 10 because I truly, not that I don't care, but I can live with bad investments and a set of bad investments if we feel really good about the process. Because that just means, hey, you lost it or whatever.
Sure.
You know, there's some
You saw it.
Yeah, you know, you did bad deals and that happens, and you know, we'll be somewhere else if that happens. I really
Sure.
don't think that's going to be the case.
Nope.
But I want to be able to look at you in the eye and say, man, I feel really good about the process, and we didn't cut corners. We did what we said we were going to do and be for our investors. It's incredibly important for me. They have, you know, segments of the market and trends and stages that they want exposure to. So when we tell them that, you know, we gave them a process, and it matters a lot to me, right? These are universities and hospitals and retirement systems, and I never lose sight of that, you know, because of how I grew up.
I love that. And I know we were talking a little bit earlier and just how important like hard work, communicating, keeping everyone in the loop, everyone involved on the founder front, on the LP front. I thought that was really amazing.
Yeah, you know, one of the commitments that we make up front, and I think it has now our LPs have really seen it. I tell them up front, you know, there's a couple of things. I want you to feel like you're talking to somebody and getting communications, whether it's a PDF or an email from a firm that's been around for 3 decades.
Yep.
I want you to feel that day one, right? And so what does that mean? That means, hey, we're going to spend a lot of time on this stuff. 2, you know, when it came to a fund admin and fund lawyers and, you know, compliance and finance, you know, I must have interviewed 10, 12 people for all of these things. And I had peers that are like, what are you doing, dude? Just like go with this one. And it matters a lot to us. I think the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And we just have such radical transparency with our LPs. They're getting monthly updates on our companies that they have all told us this is above and beyond what anybody anywhere does.
Yep.
And that's just good for everyone involved. You know, no surprises.
100%. I mean, I mentioned the hire earlier. I think you can do so much more with so much less with AI right now.
Totally.
So I talked to probably like 50 folks over the summer before making a hire. And I think that, I mean, there's a lot to the process, right?
Yep.
I think that's good. I want to move to a rapid fire closeout with you. One founder you would back again tomorrow.
Kurt Rathman, CEO of Scale Factor. And I led the Series A there. We had Byron Dieter lead the B, and then my old friends at Coatue led the C. Investment did not work, but Kurt is one of the smartest, hardest working, highest integrity human beings I've ever worked with. And he knows this, but there's a blank check for him at any point in time.
Amazing. Kurt, that's a great one for Kurt. Good Kurt. What about this one LP? And you don't have to say the specific name if you're not comfortable with it, but one LP who you're grateful to have behind you at Marathon.
Look, it's really hard to pick one, but I will, and I love you all, you know that. But it's Brian Borden at Stepstone, and you know they were one of the first yeses, if not the first yes. Awesome. And you know there's business advice and strategic advice and believing in you and all that matters, but there's just been a human relationship built there where, you know, he's just shown up and supported me and Marathon in really big ways already, you know, in this short operating history of the firm. He's just been a difference maker and a huge advocate, and just an immense amount of respect and gratitude for that.
The market right now, 2025, the year of the spinout. Okay. Talked about it a little bit earlier. I can guarantee there's a lot more coming this year. And then I don't think the trend is going to really slow down. Any advice to other GPs, partners, folks that are starting to talk to LPs for their first fund?
Have fun with it. It's if you think it's hard, it's 1,000,000 times harder. And you will not feel like an investor for a really long time. I still feel like I'm not actually doing the job that I've always done even today, right? And I think there's going to be moments in time where I do, but you know, you're an operator in many ways, right? I'm on calls with our lawyers and our fund admins, and you know, there's just a lot that goes to the firm that you didn't really appreciate when you're just sitting on somebody else's platform ripping checks and sitting on boards. Like it is tiresome, lonely, terrifying. I think I'm just now starting to settle and be like, okay, like everything's going to be okay. Like, we have a business and we have a shot here, but it's anxiety provoking for sure. And, but if you you want to do it, there's just nothing more rewarding I've ever done.
Totally. You have a great team too. You have a great team. Through line that all of probably over 100 conversations with emerging managers this year at this point has been frustrations with fundraising around their specifically first two funds, right?
Yeah.
Fund 1, Fund 2. LPs, institutional, typically will say, hey, like super interested in writing a check into a Fund 1 or a Fund 2. They do the call. After the call, clear as day, that LP, not a world they were going to send any money, but they want some allocation in Fund 5, right? So they take the meeting, right? Similar to, I'm sure some VCs out there are meeting founders that, you do Series B and C deals, founders raising the seed round, you're not going to do that deal, right? So I see that.
Right.
You don't have to say yay or nay. Am I on to something there?
In terms of like the lack of comms and just being, for sure. And by the way, it makes you, when you're finally in that seat, I hate to admit it, but like, have I ever just not followed up with the founder after a first meeting? For sure. Yeah. We're busy running around. And so I don't take, I don't take that very personally at all. What is highly annoying is if you get on with somebody and they're like, we're actively deploying. And then like at the end of it, like, oh, we're not actively deploying and we haven't deployed in 2 years. It's like, okay, awesome. Thanks for the hour. Right. And so there's stuff like that. But again, it doesn't matter. I just kind of view fundraising, whether you're, a company founder or a fund founder, it's just numbers. And, you have to be out there. There's no shortcuts to a sales process, just like any enterprise software business. You have a pipeline, qualified, push them down the funnel. Some convert, some don't. And then, we take very detailed notes on folks that that passed, that we would like involved in future funds. And we have very detailed notes on people that, passed or didn't, and we would absolutely not like in future funds. And, that's as important. And by the way, that goes back to the privilege of this moment. Like we get to decide that. And that's a beautiful thing. And, what I will say is, and I know a lot of company founders say this, you will never forget your first, commitments in that first close, like ever. Like I will go to absolute war, for our Fund 1 investors.
That is a beautiful thing. Honestly, I think that's amazing. We started curating an LP network earlier this summer after the frustrations were so obvious and clear, and the intention there, just about 75 today, a little under that, LPs who in the last 12 months have written a check into a Fund 1 or a Fund 2. We ask for introductions from folks like you. Yep. And that checks 2 boxes, right? 1, not an asshole. Specifically ask for folks they're really excited to have as part of the LPAC. 2 is they actually wrote the check in the last 12 months. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Haven't met Stepstone yet, so I might ask you to connect me with Brian on that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking of Stepstone, if you're fund of fund right now and you're focused on backing emerging managers, what emerging manager or firm would you be doing everything you possibly could to get some allocation in?
I'll avoid a lot of the folks that you already talked about because I think they're all great, and I would be doing the same for them as well. I would say Chris Fredrickson, who we overlapped at Coatue for a short period of time. He's just somebody that is low ego. He's not all over the internet, self-promoting. He's one of the best networked human beings I've ever seen, and he's super smart and knows how to underwrite, and that's kind of all you need in this business. And overlapping at Coatue, I got to see it, up close and personal, and that would, if I had to pick one, it'd be him.
Amazing. He sounds like a really good potential podcast guest also.
Correct. He likes these things about as much as I do. But we can try.
All right, Chris, you're confirmed, my man. No, I'm just kidding. Michael, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a lot of fun.